We are live. Okay. Good evening, family. Thanks for taking time out again. We have a interesting presentation. It's a continuation of my genealogical warfare series. You go through my presentations from 2022 last year. It's part one, part two. It's a lot of my, of course, I share my own personal genealogy. And, our genealogical records family are very valuable commodities, as valuable as other resources such as gold, oil, you know, any other, very, minerals, other minerals. Our genealogical records are like treasure maps, right? And so your treasure map will guide you to treasure, right, family? But in the case of our genealogical records, they're going to guide us to the treasure or inheritance that our ancestors left us. And this is what the our genealogical records have been so valuable. Um, you know, they basically kept us away from our genealogical records, right? So um, the and then they created, the whole out of Africa paradigm, funded it, and we've been distracted ever since. But recently, things have been coming back to the center line, where many of us are cognizant there, and we're focused on researching our maternal and paternal ancestors. So let me make sure I'm put a one in the chat, family, if you can hear me there. Put a one in the chat. I'm not sure if I'm able. Hold on one second. Let me get in here to make sure I am audible here. Let's see. Okay, thanks a lot there, Karen. I am audible. Okay. So let me, okay, thanks a lot there, D. Okay, you can hear me. Awesome. So yeah, thanks, Mike. So our genealogical records are just like gold ancestors. I mean, family, just gold, right? And with that, it's going to lead us to a certain point there. Greetings there, J.R. Needy. So we're gonna, do a little, show a little bit of that. I'll show now on my maternal line, my grandmother's. Um, Now, for my grandmother, maternally, I went way back, right? From my grandmother's mother, my great grandmother's mother, all the way down. But now my grandmother's father, Edmund Coco, right? Um, I chose to kind of wait on that, and I did start a little bit on that, and I want to, share a little bit of that later on during the presentation with the family, because sometimes, our genealogical records have been hijacked, family. Okay, so remember in my presentation a few days ago about the takeover, the future plan. Um, Peace, Dry Bones Rising. Welcome, Tamika Green. The future plan of the enemies, has been in the makings for decades, and replacing us with real Africans. And see, remember, family, it starts with the language first. See, remember during the 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Now, see, and this is why we have to play chess and not checkers. Watch the breakdown of how they when they have a plan to bring something into the future, there's steps to it. Now, if you notice, what's the plan that these demons have been bringing forward now? Men as women, women as men, and they actually start by changing language. So they don't even, certain areas, they don't want you. You can't say woman, you can't say girl, birthing people, right? They've been changing the language, and it starts orally first. Then they put pen to pad and they write it down. and then they'll retroactively throw it back into the past, back into history. So we've all seen this within the last 3 years, where they come up with these new terms for a birthing person, instead of a pregnant woman, right? What's the other one? Non-binary. These kind of they've been actually changing the language right in our faces over the last 3 years, and that's where it starts. And then they'll start writing it retroactively back in the past to give it legitimacy as if it's always been that way. So in our case, it started out when Jesse Jackson created the whole African American. Now we're not going to deal with the social construct black, but it's the same thing because we know that from you take from the 50s before, we weren't called that, colored, etc. But let's just focus on the Jesse Jackson social construct, African American. So remember when he created that, a lot of people were against that. But then you got to start first orally by repeating it into the ethers many times, right? But then they started writing it, retroactively throwing it back into the history. And we see when we research our ancestors or even history of popular figures, now they have the word African American in the history books now. It wasn't like that, pre 1986, right? But with the African American in the futures, once they get rid of us, which is their plan, but then the future generation will be replaced for the most part by real Africans, and then they'll fit in. So that's what's happening here, and we have to become cognizant of that. Now, there's a whole other fight that we have to do, family, um, and hopefully someone can take on the mantle because I'm over here in the mantle with claiming the ancestral lands. But I will have to participate in some of that, like I showed in my last presentation. The Isaac Williams billboard that they have there in Bossier, Louisiana, you referring to him and his men as African Americans. Now, once I claim my ancestral lands in Bossier, I will get that sign taken down um, um, because my ancestors, one of my ancestors was part of Isaac Williams' posse. So that's a direct injury to me. So I have a rightful claim to go against them with that. But I want many others. It just can't be me when it comes to this term African American. And we want to start personal. If any of your records, if any of those terms are applied to any of your ancestors, that's a direct injury to you. So we're gonna have to start. You have to throw this term away and get rid of it. Failure to do so, family, we're going to get wiped in a tsunami of these real Africans replacing us. Okay, so we have to differentiate ourselves from them. That's key. That's a major battle that we have to initiate, right? So I'm gonna do a little house cleaning first. My last presentation, I noticed that there's a few of course during my presentation, family, I don't look at the chat, so I don't know what's being written or anything because I'm focused on my I create a map of the points and I'm just focused on that, right? But I heard there when it was talk when I was talking about the Chinese records, those ship manifests with them listed as colored people, which was in 1942, right? And many of those individuals were born either the late 1800s or early 1900s. And then I was told that someone commented, "Oh well, they could have been dark, living in the American 1910s and the teens." No, family. See, history and law is your left and right leg. You have to remember. Now, I presented this before, the Ozawa case, where you had the Ozawa, the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. He was studying at a university at the time in Hawaii. He brought his family, so he was on a kind of like at that during that time in the early 19 teens and 20s. it was like a student visa. But he wanted to become a citizen of America, but he was not allowed to be a citizen of America. You see, family, Asians, in this particular case with the Chinese, they weren't allowed to be citizens in America until well after the 1930s and the 40s. I don't know if you guys don't realize that they couldn't have been citizens, so they wouldn't have that social construct colored would not have been applied to them on any official American document, such as a census record, etc. So I just want to kind of make that clear. Now, I'm not going to go back into the case laws in the previous build, but if anyone wants that Ozawa case, you just email me. And then the Supreme Court rejected his claim as citizenship, and they give their reasoning. So, but that deals with naturalization laws that we had put in place. Okay, so the Chinese are aware of that, so that's why the color term is key because it's going to connect them. They will not be Chinese in the future, family. They're going to be the Indians, right? So it's not about a melanated Chinese in the 1940s. That's not the point. The point is, you know, they couldn't have been citizens in the 19 teens and 1920s, etc. Right? So I just wanted to clear that up there. And so also the deal with the Africans replacing us and becoming us, and as I mentioned before, they're all around us, family. They're everywhere, right here on YouTube, all around us, and they impersonate us. So think of an actor playing a role, and so these sleepers are playing a role of us, but it's an exaggerated role, right? To make us look, like we're disorganized. We can never get together. We're ignorant. And if you notice, a lot of these actors playing us use certain language, and they love to use the N word. And so this was introduced to me a couple days ago, and it's worldwide, family. It's just not in America to disparage us and to ruin our image and to set us up for to be on a domestic terrorist list. A lot of these people are playing roles to make us look a certain way. But in Japan, where I live, there is this African on the train, thick accent and all, but of course, the Japanese can't differentiate that. Saying that he's from America, saying disrespectful things, talking about when the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and he said, "quote We will do it again." Oh, this was a bad look, family. So let me show this here. Quick video here. Um, and it's too bad I was not on that darn train because I would have snatched his heart out. Hold on. Let me share my screen first here. This is getting real bad here, family. Real bad. Um, Let me share my screen. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. So let's quickly watch this here. And we are in the middle of a war, family, and it's multiple opponents. It's almost as if the world's coming at us. Everyone is trying to get a piece of us here, family. Everyone, right? So here it is. Here, build this up here. Foundation of Black Americans, we don't do as much traveling as. All right, we got to dodge the whole hijack on the finding out the Foundation of Black Americans. We're not subscribing to what's his name? Tariq Nasheed's trademark to enrich him. All right? We should.
It's very rare to see a foundational Black American outside of America. I've been all around the world, whether it be Russia, South Africa, Ethiopia, Mexico, South Korea, China. I've been all around the world. One thing that I've noticed is you won't find a lot of Black Americans traveling. But a lot of people from these different countries that I named, they look up to us as Black Americans. They see us as fighters, they see us as cool people, and they want to emulate us. They want to be like us. This sometimes can backfire because we do have some people, especially some Africans, who will lie and say that they are Black Americans so they can kind of get cool points, but they're not us. They can look like us because they have black skin, but they don't sound like us. But people in other countries, they don't know any better. I say all that to say I found this clip and it really broke my heart. It's really shameful to see. Check this out. You know, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You know why you do this? Pearl Harbor. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Yes, man, nigga. Yes, Hiroshima. About four niggas, spy balloon. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You know what we do to you niggas? Hiroshima, Nagasaki. We destroy it. Because you niggas don't know how to behave. Wallahi billahi wa tallahi. I swear to God. You do again, we're gonna do again. You understand? You understand, Hiroshima? Yeah, nigga, move away, nigga. Nigga, wallahi we do again. Wallahi, I swear to God. Wallahi billahi wa tallahi. Niggas don't understand our power. Niggas don't understand. Wallahi billahi, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, you know. You know Hiroshima, Nagasaki. We're gonna do again. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You understand? You don't know. You know history. You know. What? All right, so just wanted to quickly share that there, family. So let's quickly break this down. So it's clearly, again, these people are operatives on missions. Think of this like a drive-by. See, in America, the dude would be in a mass drive-by shooting. But in Japan, this op has to, kind of match the culture. There aren't any guns, so he does this. But the entire point and the objective is to make us look bad. These are terroristic threats from the Japanese perspective, from America, from melanated Americans making terroristic threats to Japan. That's a nation-to-nation issue right there. And this dude is Somalian. But this is what he got paid for. So we have to draw a line in the sand, family. Because these sleepers are they've been winning these battles. And that's why we're at this point right now. It's basically the fourth quarter, and we're down by, 4 touchdowns. So we have to really lock in here and focus, right? So, but fortunately, I heard that when he got off this train, some Japanese Yakuza gangsters took care of him. So, you can't get to mention Pearl Harbor and say you're going to do it again, make a threat like that, can cost you your life here in Japan if you don't know if you're not careful. And then after he got off that train, he was approached by a couple of Yakuza. I don't know what happened to him, but this here, and my point is, family, it's a global thing that's happening, and we are the targets. Why we're the targets? Because we're the heirs. Once they get rid of us, they got free reign. All right?
and we are hard out now, but we still we just can't be losing. We've been getting our butt kicked because we've been not thinking about these sleepers and it's horrible, family. They've taken over our historical institutions, the industries they've taken over. In the hospitals, most of your nurses aren't real American sisters. They're foreign, mostly Africans. The doctors, Africans. They're everywhere. And they've been waiting patiently since they've been here. They've been allowed to come here in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, waiting patiently, right? So, yeah, so we gotta be careful. But again, our strongest weapon is our knowledge of our maternal and paternal ancestors, right? Because once we discover that, then we would be, wait a minute, no, you're not me, I'm not you. Because if they were part of our family, then they'd be also heirs to our inheritance. An African would be an heir to your inheritance here in America, vice versa. Okay, but that's not the case, right? And so and I'm going to quickly now, as I mentioned before, they're taking a lot of us, these Pan Africans, up their game, and they're taking a lot of us out of America to parts of West Africa, to sell the notion that we should move here, live here, invest, build up their economy, buy land there. Okay, so last time couldn't really show what I wanted to show, but I want to quickly show this here now. Um, this quick video here, and they're using celebrities as well to sell this idea, family.
I think that a DNA test is like a start. You know what I'm saying? If you haven't done that, I know a lot of people say we need to get on the board and do that. But a visit to Africa is a shift, and it's going to shift you. Yeah.
Let me make it bigger here, family. Here we go.
What's good, y'all? It's the Democrats React, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, Susie?
Today we are back with another American reaction.
Yeah.
Super excited about this video, guys. If you're new to us
And we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the post notification bell because we're on the road.
Ghana. I'm a woman in Ghana.
Living in the U.S., all of the seats are taken, all the big brands are there, and here you have an opportunity to create a seat at the table.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
It's significant to know where you belong and where you came from.
For Angela Matthews and Cindy Myers, this morning marks the start of a trip they never thought they would make.
I think of our grandparents who wish they could have done that. So we're doing it for them.
The sisters are getting ready to travel to Ghana in West Africa for the first time.
Okay, I want to speak on something for a second.
Okay, hold on here, family. Hold on one second here. Let me go back here. Um, Okay, so here they talk about here that the reason they're moving back is because they're facing. Welcome to racism. Present day Ghana, where according to the International Monetary Fund, they've now produced one of the fastest growing economies, and where the success and safety here rank alongside several countries in Europe. In the last few years, Black Americans searching for a real-life Wakanda started moving here in droves. Hello, everybody. Rashad McCrory. I'm from Harlem, New York City. 40-year-old Rashad McCrory runs a travel company and moved here during the pandemic. He says he's here living his best life and is not looking back. Okay, family. I mean, does anybody feel this here? Anybody feel that? You know, when they get back there, you know, look at the beautiful houses behind him. Anybody feel that?
It's all part of the systematic injustice that put us in a condition where a lot of times we have to come out of America to heal, to be places where we're not always the victim, we're not always in protection mode. And being in Africa right now and relocating out of the United States, whether it's temporary or long term, I feel myself healing. I'm starting to see Black people in love and unity. That's some strong stuff, right? That you had to leave America to heal. It's like now I'm on the outside looking in. You know, like what they say about a bad relationship. You're in a bad relationship, but you don't know it because it's all you know. For the first time in his life, he says he's not afraid of the police. Only in Ghana I have police friends. You know, in America, I refuse to have police friends no matter what the ethnicity is.
Exactly, Gotti. Dude is clearly might be a first gen African. Okay, so but the point is this. That's enough of that, family. But the point is this. Okay, so they're and this is all part of their mission to make it feel that there's some boogeyman who's so powerful who butt broke you, and they're beating you and they're killing you. But oh, we got a solution. Just go back home, go back to the motherland, and they'll fly you out there so you can buy land and invest and live there. And while in the back way, what's happening? They're coming to America to replace us. Okay, so and then now they're using celebrities. So I don't know if you guys you realize this, but there's celebrities involved with this, you know, and so now that's the perfect segue. And I have a guest today, Eris Johnson, and she's going to present one such celebrity. He was part of that whole campaign and promotion of, you know, recruiting us to go to parts of West Africa. Okay, so let me, you know, Miss Eris Johnson. I will stop sharing my screen so you can present your information to the family here. Let's see here. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing screen. Okay, so I stopped sharing my screen. You can unmute yourself and you can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, hopefully I can do this. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Greetings. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sure they
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay, wonderful.
Press one in the chat there, family. You can hear Eris Johnson there.
And I don't know what this Eris Johnson is about, but Amani,
You are
only
an
you.
air. You are an
Only
air.
you. What the heck?
Press one in the chat there, family. You can hear Eris Johnson there. Okay, great, awesome.
All
Okay,
right. Greetings.
take it away.
All these noble men and noble women I see in here. Aborigines, autochthonous Americans, as well as returnees. Greetings, everybody. Yeah, Amani, I am one of his, should I say prodigies? I don't know. I have met Amani through I've been a part of this community for quite some time. And I have met Amani through just going through this whole visiting our roots situation. Um, And it's been a journey, like it has been from probably most of you all. And the importance of tonight, the reason why I wanted to, I didn't necessarily want to do this because this is not my forte, if you will, but I felt it important because, as we all know, and we're all experiencing, we're trying, society in general, all these foreigners are trying to replace us. And it's unfortunate that most of our people can't see it. They don't know what's going on. They've been bamboozled through social media, through mostly through indoctrination, whether it be through the school system, whether it be through the religion, just in general. And it's getting to the point where we have to take a stand. And I am fortunate. I'm much older than probably most of y'all in this chat, but I am fortunate that I'm in this situation where I can see it in real time, where we are that generation that's going to take a stand. We're not going to let them take over our land and our inheritance. Our ancestors were brilliant. No matter what they tell you about our ancestors, they couldn't read, they couldn't write. That's a bunch of hogwash. And even if they couldn't, I'm a prime example. My dad had a third grade education. He only went to the third grade. He worked on the farm. Grew up on the farm. My grandfather died when my dad was young, but my father could build anything with his hands. Anything. He literally built an engine from scratch with his hands, with a third grade education. So we have been conditioned to think, oh, okay, if you're not educated, if you don't have this, you can't do that. That's not true. My dad was a hard worker until the day he died, or until he got sick and he couldn't work any longer. But he provided for 9 children. I'm one of 9. And so he provided for all of us. And and my mom always looked good, even to this day. He took very good care, as much as he possibly could, for us and for his family. He cared about us. He loved us. So I felt the need to sort of come in just a little bit, because Amani showed me a very disturbing video in regards to a bunch of some Africans trying to claim our ancestors. And they chose people like Denzel Washington, they chose Samuel Jackson, Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry. The list goes on and on. Beyonce, Taraji Henson. And because I started doing genealogy and some of the websites that I use, I said, you know what? I'm going to take a stand on this. I'm going to go behind them and see if what they're stating is true. So I'm going to try to share my screen. I don't know what I'm doing, so please forgive me, but I'll see if I can do this correctly. And let's see, which one am I sharing? Alrighty. All right. Can you see my screen? Can everyone see my screen? If you could press one for me, please, I appreciate it. Amani, I don't know what happened to you.
Oh, well, I muted myself.
Oh, okay. All right. Can you see my screen?
No,
No,
they said
no.
they see it.
Okay,
No.
okay. All right. Let me try this again. Thank you, thank you. All right. Okay, so it wasn't that one, so it had to be. It's got to be this one. All right. Can you see it now? I hope.
I had to screen. Hold on. Okay, there you go. Yep, they can see it
Okay,
now.
perfect, perfect.
I had to add it. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
think,
okay.
yeah, it should be okay there now, Mike. Let us put one in the chat there, Mike.
Okay,
It should be.
perfect.
Yeah.
They're saying no, so I don't know.
No, okay, now right there,
I'm gonna bring.
there it is. Yeah, we can see it now. Yeah, we can see it. This archives. Yes, we can see it.
You can see it. Okay, perfect, perfect.
At least I can. Yeah.
All right. So, okay, perfect, perfect.
Yeah,
All
they
right. So
can
we're
see
gonna
it.
start with one of my favorite actors. Perfect. We're going to start one of my favorite actors on the planet, and that's Mr. Denzel Washington. He needs no introduction. Everybody, unless you've been living under a rock, you know who he is. So anyway, I'm starting with his father, and then I'm going to work my way back. So this is a website that I love. It's called archives.com. Love this website. It's a little hidden gem. Um, if you all are not subscribed, I really strongly suggest you do so. They let you, this is a wonderful website. It's one of my favorites. So, anyway, this is Denzel's father right here. As you see, it says he migrated from Virginia, born in 1909. And this is some of the work that he did. He had his own farm. We see right away, home farm right there. Um, and then he worked, I guess, as a state highwayman labor. If you click on here, a lot of times it'll show what their nationality was. So it has Denzel H. Washington, Negro. I think this is the grandfather, but birth year. This is the grandfather, if I'm not mistaken. And then this is his father right here. So let me just see. Let me just make sure. Let me see. Nope, that's not right. Okay, we'll go back then. All right, so that's I'm not sure which one this is. Please forgive me. But anyway, this is Denzel Washington. This is one of his. I want to say this is his father. Let me see. When was he born? 1909. All right, so I'm going to click on this one just to see if this is the father or the grandfather. Yeah, this is the father. This is the father. So this is his. This is his wife, Paulette Pearson. This is him, and this is his father, and this is his mom. So I'm going to go back to the father one more time, and as you see, what they were trying to say was that I want to say on that particular video that Denzel's father or grandfather was from Africa. What part of Africa, I can't remember. But we're going to see how far we can go back on Denzel's family. So this is the next line that I would like to go to. And that brings me to a William Washington. Now, William, also from Virginia. You're going to notice a lot of the people seem to migrate from Virginia, North Carolina. He was another farmer. He had his own farm. When you see General Farm, that means he was a head farm, and this was his farm. Also, he moved around a lot. Chickahominy, Charles City, Virginia. Let's see. So that's telling right there. A lot of times when you see things like Chickahominy or a Chickasaw or something like that, that could have been the particular indigenous or autochthonous Indian nation that was in that a part of that particular region. So we already see right here that we're in the 1800s. Don't see anything about Africa so far. So good, right? So um, lots of children, whole lot of cheering going on right here. And then we see his father, which is Mr. William Washington, mother's Margaret Johnson. So I'm going to click on Mr. William Washington, and it brings me once again to Virginia, Westmoreland County, 1846. So at this point, we're looking to see a lot of times they'll skip the 1860 census because, at this point, they don't want you to know that these people were working, they were not slaves, blah, 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 blah. But actually, here we go, right here. All right, so 1860, he was 14 years old. And let's see. Now, they're going to say white. White was a status. And Imani he's going to explain to you why they have white right here. So again, to push the narrative that this was a pale face, I say pale face, and that he was, the only reason why he was free, quote unquote, during this time was because he was a pale face. This was a status because he was a major landowner. So we're going to keep going down, and once again, we're at so far, no Africans. I don't see any evidence anybody from Africa being because it'll say it up here. A lot of times it'll say if they were migrated from Africa or from Italy or wherever. It says right here. So far, we don't see a migration. We see a migration from Virginia, but that's pretty much it. Then we're going to keep going back to his parents, which was a John Washington, born August 1812 in Virginia. He died in Pennsylvania. We don't have a date, but he did pass away in Pennsylvania. He was also a farmer. He had some blacksmith experience for quite some time. So it looks like they worked on the either blacksmith, railroad, uh, lots of children. That's another hint that these were melanated people because pale-faced people could not have this many children during this time. You have to think about it. Their average living, because they lived in such filth, they usually only lived to be like 40, 50 years old, and they couldn't dare have this many healthy children unless they were into mixing with a melanated, highly melanated person. So now we're at 1812. They're gonna keep the narrative that he was a pale face, that he was white. Let me see. I'm gonna click on this one. Oh, okay, he went to oh, see how that happened? He's black. I don't know if it's the same person or not. Yeah, it says John Washington, Virginia. Somehow the family's going from black to white to black. I'm surprised I didn't see mulatto yet, but that's okay. All right, so he was a blacksmith. He did go to Texas. I do see that here. Alrighty. So this is where it gets interesting. And I don't know if you want to take over at this point, Amani.
No, you go ahead, continue.
Okay. So this is Bushrod Corbin Washington. Um, he was a major landowner as well. And he was actually, let's see, I hope I'm in the right line. But he was actually I think he was a congressman, if I'm not mistaken, out of Virginia. So he was a major landowner. See agriculture here, Fairfax, Virginia. This is his wife, Hannah Lee. Thomasina Blackburn. I can't remember who she is, but she has her name is significant as well. So we're going to click on Bushrod Corbin Washington, and then we're going to click on his father, Corbin Washington. Now, Corbin Washington, also out of Virginia, Hannah Lee was the wife. The reason why he was named Bushrod is because his mom's last name was Bushrod. And I think our ancestors, you'll see that a lot when you start going back. You'll see a lot of that going on where they're putting the last name part of the children's name, I guess, so that we could, maybe they knew this was going to happen at some point where we're going to, people are going to be coming around stealing our identities. So our ancestors were brilliant. And so that's how his name ended up being Bushrod, the other Bushrod Corbin Johnson. So we're going to keep going back, and we're at John Augustine Washington. John Augustine Washington. Anybody know who he is? If you don't know, this would be well, I'm gonna keep going, but he was also a major landowner out of Wakefield, Virginia. He was married to Hannah Bushrod, as I stated earlier. Look at all these cheering. You'll see names like this one, Afia. Um, I'm looking for something that really stands out. Afia stands out to me, but not to the one. Oh, that's what it was. Bushrod was a justice of the peace. He was a major judge during that time. Now, I know these names look familiar. They have to look familiar to you. This is Lawrence Augustine Gus Washington. The reason why they have his whole government name associated with George is they're trying to tell you that this is George Washington's grandfather. So George Washington is right here. This is Denzel Washington's 10th great uncle. He's a Washington. Um, we already know the significance of Martha Dandridge Custis, of the famous Custis lineage. Also, it correlates with her marrying George marrying Martha with all these children that she had, and he lovingly adopted, is what I think he did. I believe he did. But then also here we go with Augustine Washington. So that's the grandfather. So George Washington's father, as well as Denzel Washington's, I want to say 11th great grandfather, is Augustine Washington. Mary Ball, it was his wife, and there's something significant about her as well. Um, so here we go. Lawrence Washington, grandfather to George. All right. So when we go back to Lawrence Washington, no, I want to go back to George Washington for a minute. Mary Ball, if you all are familiar with that series, that comes on Discovery Channel. It's called The Curse of Oak. I can't see the chat, so I hope you guys are not talking. But the Curse of Oak Island. This is that Ball family. There was a gentleman. Let me see if I can find him. His name was, here we go. Here we go. Curse of Oak Island. And this is him. This is his island that they've been raping over the last X amount of years. This is that series that comes on, and this is that Samuel Ball right here. This is this is allegedly a painting of him. Um, this is the Ball family. Uh, this is supposed to be a genuine painting of him. I'm not for sure if it is or not, but Mary Ball or Samuel Ball was actually a descendant of this. I'm sorry, yeah, of Mary Ball. This is him. This is the gentleman of Oak Island. That series has been on Discovery Channel for over 10 years, and they've been digging up that land, trying to find all those jewels and all that treasure. And they said the island is cursed. This heavily melanated man, gentleman right here. This is Samuel Ball, and this is also Denzel Washington's. This would be his aunt. Any questions so far?
Nope. Keep bringing it.
Oh,
Acquiring,
okay. All right.
acquiring.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to keep going back on this Washington line. So now we got Colonel Joseph Mathis Ball. I'm sorry. That's the Ball line. I want to go back to the Washington. So let's go back. Here we go. So we're going to get back onto this Washington line. Um, we're already in 1694, still in Virginia. Major landowners. Now we're seeing people that's in the military. We already made the connection to George Washington. All these cheering, tons of children. And then we go to another good family is the Warner family. That's a good family, but I won't talk about that right now. Lawrence Washington, grandfather. Keep going back. We're still in Virginia, 1659, Lawrence Washington. Then we end up with the Pope family. That's another good family to come from. Um, so this particular website, like I said, I love it. It lets me go all the way back. Now this is where I wanted to, and Amani is more familiar with this than I am. However, as you seeing, we're going all the way back, and we end up in England, right? So we're thinking, okay, well, these had to be pale face, and they, the narrative that they were the slave owners, they raped their ways into the family, blah 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 blah. No, they did not. No, they did not. There's a reason why I call him Lord Amani has coined the word returnees. These people came back home. They were major landowners. They were major kingsmen, and all just knights and barons and things of that nature. And when they had that huge, I guess it was a religious with the Jacobite. I hope I'm saying it right. During that war, and they were put out of England and Wales and all those great things. They came back home. When you commit a crime per se, and you're not organically of a land, what do? They deport you back to your homeland. These people came back home, and they came back home to their families. And the reason why I wanted to sort of give my little input, just a little bit that I had, look at this Washington Baron Maidstone, registered to the Chancery Court. Look at this. This is his. This is his lineage. This is just part of it. This is not even all his lineage. This is where he comes from. But yet they want to tell you that you came from Africa. You came from nothing. This is his lineage. This is his bloodline right here. He's royal, and not just him. I'm looking at the names in the. Let me go back to the chat for a minute. I'm looking at all the names in the chat. I see Harris. Shout out to D. Harris. That's a royal line. That's also a line that comes from goes to England, comes back. There's a Captain John Harris, head of the Catawba Nation. We also, I'm looking at who else did I see up in here? The cop Reed is oh my God, that's a huge one. Um, what else am I seeing? I saw someone else that said Williams is a huge one. We got Choctaw Williams, also goes back to England, becomes part of the Knight Temple, and then part of those returnees. We have, of course, we have the Stewart family. A lot of these people end up being chiefs, queens, chiefess. They were going back and forth. They were the same family, the same bloodline. We have to stop thinking that that people just came here and our people were just the people that were here, the autochthonous ones that stayed, that did not go over traveling overseas, that they just let them come in and be willy-nilly like that. They wouldn't have done that. They let them come back because this is where they were from. They came home. Now, what happened when they got home? I guess all hell broke loose. I don't know. But these people came back home. You don't let somebody come home, and I'm gonna show you a prime example of that. This is one of my ancestors. If you're familiar with the Anne Boleyn, now they're making this series and Queen Anne Boleyn and what's that, Queen Elizabeth, not Elizabeth, what's her name? Charlotte Moore. If you're familiar with all of that that's going on right now, this is Francis Bryan, right? Francis Bryan, his father was called Francis the Vicar of Hell. If you all saw the series, this was a gentleman that had a patch over his eye. This was Queen Anne Boleyn's cousin. This was her first cousin, but he turned on her. And he ended up turning on her because he and King Henry VIII were like they were very, very close. They were very good friends. But he turned on his own cousin for Queen Henry VIII. Had his cousin beheaded. I'm pause it for a minute. Sometimes we have to learn gene our genealogy so we can clean up our bloodline. Some of our ancestors did some crazy stuff, and this is one of them. This is my ancestor. He's my direct great grandfather. So I go back to him, right? Now we're saying he's coming from Ireland. Okay, so here's his son, William Smith Bryan. He was called the Prince of Ireland. But as I'm looking in here, how did Wahaganachi, the prince, how did he end up in here? How did the Prince of Ireland, also known as him, end up with Sir Francis Bryan? These are the same people. They got us thinking that these kings and these royals were different people. These were the same bloodline. This is one of the Powhatan's chiefs, but he was also the Prince of Ireland at the same time. I'm going to show you something else. This right here, this is a lady. Let's see if I can expand it. Her name is Lisa Henderson. She's a melanated, she would be considered like a Melungeon, but she does a lot of history on free people of color, specifically in North Carolina. That's where she's from. And I'll drop this link in the chat so you all can look at it. This is the North Carolina Free People of Color.net. This is talking about the chieftains and headmen of the Tuscarora on behalf of their nation. So it says an act for confirming a lease made by the Tuscarora Indians to Robert Jones, this is William Choctaw Williams, and he was a chief too, Thomas Pugh, Esquires. I'm just going to skip down to the name. I promise I'm going to drop this down in the chat or give it to Amani and he can get it out to anybody that's interested. But look at these names if you can see it. All of these names Every last one of these names, well, I shouldn't say every last one, but most of them I'm familiar with because a lot of these ties into the same family. They go back to England. Wherever England, Wales, Ireland was at, these are major chiefs of the Tuscarora tribe. So we have Sir James Allen, we have John Wiggins. Anybody know any Wiggins? I do. Of course, we know Allens. We have Snipnose George. That was actually George. I think it was him. George Blunt of the Tuscarora Indians. Sir Thomas Blunt, also chief of the Tuscarora. We have let's see, Thomas Seneca. I'm not familiar with him. I hate this name, but this is Whitmill. I think he's a Whitmill. Um, we have Taylors, we have Walkers, we have Roberts. All of these names are going back to England or Wales or Ireland, but they're also chiefs of the Tuscarora. These were considered full-blooded Indians. They were melanated men. These were free. Look at this. North Carolina, free people of color. These were what you would I say Negroes. So I hope I don't offend anybody, but that's what I normally say. I'll say Negroes because I don't like to say black. This is Chief Billy Mitchell. His name was William Billy Mitchell. He's a chief of the Tuscarora. This is Captain Joe. They think this is Captain Joe Lawson. William Pugh was a chief. All of these are chiefs. But they also go back to England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, all of them was part of that Jacobite rebellion, as they call it, the Jacobite rebellion that got sent back home. Some of these people, when you go back to England, you're going to see more behind their name. I know that's not comfortable for a lot of people, but when you start seeing some of these castles and some of these artifacts, and both see, we're trying to go worldwide with getting our land back. It's not just here in America. They took our land everywhere. They took our land in England. That fake queen and that fake king that just got ordained or whatever they call it, that's not the real King Charles. King Charles the last, they were stewards. He's not a steward. Some of you in the chat probably are stewards. That's your castle. That's not his castle. That's yours. So going back to um, Washington, what they're doing is they're trying to make us think that we only came from slavery and all this nonsense based on some fake DNA tests. And this is the true lineage. I went through, it's 25 people. I went through almost every last one of them. And just about every last one of them that I could find. And it includes Halle Berry, Beyonce, Jay-Z. I just did Jay-Z because I did Beyonce. The list goes on. Every last one of them had either, now he had more royal than I saw, more than Indian, but there's others that had Indian chiefs, you name it. I couldn't find I still haven't found an African. I have not found one African, even with Oprah Winfrey herself. She was another one that was on that list. I didn't find not one African, not one. All I found was either Indians, Negroes, colored, black, or it sent me back here to England. And we're realizing, I won't say we knew because I didn't know this until just a few years ago. These were all melanated people of the same bloodline. This is what they don't want us to know. Amani.
Right. Thanks a lot there, Ms. Johnson.
You're
Wonderful
welcome.
presentation. Very powerful information. And again, yeah, drop that. You can send that to me. The North Carolina Free Persons of Color, and I can send that
Okay.
out to the family. Whoever, reach out to
Okay.
me there. Whoever wants that document there of those
Yeah, and
names.
I'll give you another one too, real quick. I forgot about this one. Real quick. This is a census that was taken, I think, 2010. This is an official census. Look at this census. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to share this with you of mine, so please forgive me. But this says the most common American Indian and Alaskan Native last name. Now, definitely, separated the two. You have American Indian, and then you have Alaska Native last name. So they're going on this list. I'll make sure I drop this in the link as well because you guys have to see this. When you see this list, the number one American Indian last name is Smith. The next one is Johnson. You could see the Native Americans because that's B gay. I don't know what B gay. I don't even know what that is. That's a Native American. Locklear, I guess that could go either way. Jones, Williams, Br- again, Choctaw Williams, Sir John Brown, Nikki Davis of the Powhatan. I can give you name upon just about every name on here has an indigenous connection. The Moores, you have Colonel Moore, John Moore of the Catawba Nation. You have Walkers, you have Jake. Look at all these names. We just looked at Mitchell. Baker is Chief Blackhawk. That's Baker. He's a Baker. You want us to think that these were some raggedy pale face that came here and and gave us these names? No. Look at this. Parker, Collins, Indian Collins, Sapani tribe. That's the Sapani Indians right there. Howard, Sir Lord Howard, Lady Howard. Her family comes right back here. Here's a Cooper, here's a Turner, Edie Turner of the Nottoway tribe, Queen Edie, Queen Turner, Edie Turner. We hear Spencer family comes back. They become part of the Powhatan Nation. All of these names. Chief Bailey, Chief William Bailey, his name, William Bailey. And real quick, look, and there goes my family, Brian Bryant. And what these are got Moors, Black Europeans, pale people. These pale people are having discussions after discussions after discussions, stealing these names. They don't care about no more. They don't care about Black European. They don't care about none of that. They're taking these names. They're getting things like grants. They're putting themselves as Native American. They're getting in all these organizations that's for our people. While we're talking about Black and Moors and Black Europeans and who's an Aboriginal, who's an Indian, who's a Native American, this is what they're doing. They're stealing these names. They don't care about that because they know behind this name is royalty. Whether they were identified as a Moor, a Black European, a whatever. They know it's royalty and there's benefits behind these names. And that's what we have to do. Barnes is a noble name. That's part of what is Barnes? Barnes, I think, part of the Choctaw Nation. That's the Pamunkey tribe. Hamilton, Freeman. Look at all these names. These are your people.
That was powerful. We
Money.
appreciate that there.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
make sure. Oh, you're welcome. I'll make sure I leave it for everybody.
yep, yep. And then
I don't know if is there
we'll
any
get.
way I could drop it in the yeah.
Um,
I'll send it to you, Amani, so you could put it
yeah,
in the
send it
chat or
to me.
whatever. I don't know how to do all that.
Yeah, yeah, send it to me, and then they'll reach out to me, and I'll send it
Okay.
to them. Right, great job there.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
So no problem there. I appreciate you. Thanks a lot there. You can just stay
Hmm.
right where you are, and we'll go ahead. And I'm going to go ahead and complete the presentation. So
Okay, Mama.
yes, family. So again, like as I stated before, our names and our genealogical records are very valuable commodities, resources, just like gold, just like oil, and any other precious mineral. Okay, because it connects to legacy, estate, land titles, right? And of course, our name's been hijacked. Now, I'm gonna quickly show before I want to get into some of a few individuals first. But before that, as I stated earlier on, um, yeah, just everyone reach out to my email, Kyle. Just reach out, email me. And any document that we presented during this presentation, I'll share with the family. So I want to quickly, as I was stating in my introduction when we first started, I on my maternal line, my mother's mother, my grandmother, I mainly focused, straight down her maternal line, like my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my second great grandmother, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, all the way down to like the 13th. Okay, but now on my maternal grandmother's, her father, I was gonna save that for last. But I'm still not focused on that. But I did get started on it a little bit. Now I traveled to when I went to Louisiana last September. I went to the Louisiana State Archives, and while I was there, I was mainly focused on my paternal line, my Brissette paternal line. But of course, in my things to do list, I had some of my maternal ancestors who were also born in Louisiana. So I kind of got some of the records. And so hold on, I'm going to share this and show you a live example of how they hijack and steal our family names and legacy, right, in their records. So let me show a live example of that. Um, so that's why when we're surfing through these records, we have to, have be cognizant. So let me share my screen first here. Go here, share screen, share screen. Okay. Okay, there we go. And we go here. Okay, all right. So, in Louisiana State Archives, I visited there last September. Beautiful structure there. And then here, let me see. And then, of course, when you get in there, you work with these machines here. These are machines, the microfilm that you work with there, right? You get a whole list of the microfiche. You're going to look through these documents, right? Then you get to print them out, and they're free to print out. But if you want a certified copy, you'll pay a few cents to get that. But now let me first show you here. So my grandmother, and as you know, during my previous, I believe it was Genealogical Warfare 1, and this is my grandmother here, okay? Ruby Coco. That's her maiden name. That's her father's name. She's a Coco, right? She's born in Shreveport, Louisiana, 1923, April 12th, okay? So I shared this with the family before. Everyone knows that. And then her father is Edmund Coco. And let me share a photo of him. I have him actually, a great photo of him in his military uniform, World War One. Now, Edmund, he's born 1893, right around there, also um, there in Louisiana there. So this is a photo of him here. And this used to, sit and when, of course, I grew up with my grandmother. Um, she basically reared us all. And on the piano, on the wall there, this photo here on the wall there, Edmund Coco. Okay. Now, of course, while I was there at the Louisiana State Archives, I tried to his death certificate was not available. Now that's very, very strange. Now he's born 1893 and he died December 1972. So Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, according to their own rules, they have all death certificates after 1911. Okay. Now, of course, And Orleans will have the older records, both birth and death, pre 1911. So if your ancestors from Orleans, then you can get records, a death record in the 1830s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. And also you can get the older birth records. But other parts of the state of Louisiana, it's only 1911. But again, they don't have his death certificate. They didn't have it at the archives. Now, I must impress this upon you, family. Many of our ancestors, they are considered what you will call confidential. Their records are confidential. So we'll be hard pressed to find their death certificates, even like my paternal great grandfather. But there are other ways you have to go around to get information. So where they're supposed to have it at the archives, they're not going to have it. So you may have to, another route is to order the death certificate from the health department, Department of Health, and the capital of the state. That's where the original copies are housed. Birth and death records are housed at the Department of Health and Vital Records in each capital of every state. Okay, so you'd have to go there. But at the archives, unfortunately, then they have this death certificate. But now, so I'm just kind of starting off on my this particular grandfather's line down the Cocoa line. Okay, but now what I do know is that his great grandfather Dominique Coco, there's a lot of land that they have. Um, a lot of land, and I found like 5 land patents, and those particular ancestors of ours who had land, who were heirs of land, they're going to make it very difficult to find their records. Not impossible, but difficult. You have to really put a lot of work in to do that. But let me show you what I pulled here to show you how they hijack and steal our family names. Okay. Um, so let me show you this one here first. Okay, so Alice Coco. Pull this up here. You see here, Alice Coco, right? So you see here. Now, fortunately, I found this record. Okay. Now, when I go back to Louisiana, I'm going to pull this particular um, death record here. Okay. So you see Alice Coco, female. She's listed Negro, 84 at the time. Birth year 1863, death date March 8th, 1947, death place Avoyelles, Louisiana. Okay? So remember this date here. Matter of fact, write it down, family. Death date March 8th, 1947, birth year 1863, Alice Coco. Now, they created a whole duplicate phony copy of this record. And I noticed this here when I was there. So take a look at this here. Look at this one here. Okay, right here. Okay, let me download it so I can rotate it. Open file. Okay, there it is here. Certificate of death. Now, another thing you must notice, family, whenever you see a death certificate and when things are typed in, that's a modern warlock typing in that information. Okay? So let's examine this carefully. So we see it has here the same name, Alice Coco. Death date. Now remember that March 8th, family, on the last record. Now, but here, look at there. Color, race, what's typed in? White. Age, 84 years old, the same as the record we just previously saw, the real one. Okay? Same parish, Avoyelles, right? Now, let's look at the death date right here. Now let me go to the next image. Let me go to the next image real quick here. Pull this up here. right there. Look at this. Let's blow it up. Death date. Now remember that death date on the original one. It said March 8th, 1947. Look at this. Month 3, which is March, day 8th, year. Now look at, so they first, it looks like they first had a 5, and they would have marked pen while looking at the original record, they put in 7. March 8th, 1947, the same death date as the original one we just previously saw, the one that had Alice as Negro. Okay? Same death date, right? And it's all typed in, as we, and of course here, this is the entire thing there. So you see that there. Yeah. So this is what they do, all typed in information, right? Because as on a real original death certificate, you're going to have someone who fills it out, usually a family member, someone close, right? And they sign it, and all of that. But everything's typed in and is modeled after um, this one right here. Modeled after this right here. Same death date, March 8th, 1947, Albert Ellis, Louisiana. Same age on there, 84. And they switched the race up, family. So this is what they do. So they're going to target our ancestors, especially the ones who were landlords. Those are the ones they target and hijack. Okay? Right? So I just want to quickly show a real live example of a hijack there, right? So, but now this is one thing they will not do, family. Don't get discouraged by that, because you remain diligent, um, and go continue going, gathering your records, because what the evil devil will not do, they will not stand on those genealogical records. Now, what do I mean by that? Because ultimately, to claim our ancestral lands, that's a lawsuit. So you gotta, through via affidavit under oath, swear to the truth of those evidence, of the evidence, your genealogical records, and you present that in that courtroom. The imitator won't do that. They're not gonna make an affidavit to attest that those are their ancestors. They won't take it that far. Okay, this is why they do this to discourage us. So, like when you see on those older census records, you'll see W for white. You won't think that that's your ancestor, and it's just going to discourage you. You'll stop. So you got to break through all of that stuff there, and understand that that's the first hijack. And now my previous presentation of what the Chinese are doing with their African pawns, they're just following the same playbook that the Pale Skins did before in hijacking our family names. It's the same playbook. But none of them will go take it into a courtroom to claim it. They won't do that. So that's why the titles are still sitting there unclaimed. All right. So and we're going to further just I want to present a couple of individuals real quick just to show how these Afrocentrics and these other promoters and distractors, how they lie and retroactively throw back terms in the past and create stories about other people's ancestors, to fit their narrative. And many of you may be descendants of Paul Slocum, the Slocum family, aka Paul Cuffey. Okay, and now just to remind the family, I did a presentation on Paul Cuffey before, but I'm just gonna briefly present some new information, and just to reaffirm previous statements that I made about the Slocum family, aka the Cuffey family. Um, Now let's show the typical hijack story created by these the opponent. So this is and you just Google the name, you get typical information. But these people are creating these narratives and placing it on him, right? So this is an article, The Black Past, and they like to take certain figures, and so think of it as this way, family. They're trying to they're casting spells, right? Because remember, what is the whole point of everything? The whole point is to make sure we will never know or be cognizant that we're heirs in our ancestors' own America. That's the foundation of the planet. As long as we're cut off from our inheritance and we think they got us focused on a whole other location, they can continue to benefit off of our lands and all the minerals under it, etc. Okay, that's the game. So individuals like this individual, who many may be heirs or descendants of, they have to create stories, right, about these particular individuals, um, and cast these spells on them. So you'll never know these individuals, are footed in America, and real Americans, but they got to make them slave descendants. Now let's just take out parts of this article here, and we're going to dispute it. So, and of course, they say that his father was from Africa, and specifically they said the Ashanti Empire, right? And first of all, yes, there was no real Ashanti Empire, that the London Company or any company was even nowhere near in the 1700s. Then they say they brought him to New England at the age of 10. Now, you look at Paul's father's record, he's born 1717, right? So you brought him when he was 1727. There are no engagements with the London Company or Virginia Company, any company dealing with the colonies over there during that time, right? And then his father, another major landlord. And in my previous presentation, what did I show? I showed his last will and testament. And in his last will and testament, he left one of his farms to one of his sons. He left something for Paul, left something for his daughter. He had a plantation in present-day Rhode Island. But they want to cast the slave spell on him. But we know better, okay? So, but let's go down here. So it says here, Cuffy became politically active in his early 20s. In 1780, against the backdrop of the American Revolution, Cuffy led a group of free blacks to petition the Massachusetts government either to give what to whom? There it is, family, African Americans. What did I say? They're going to take, first they speak and change the language orally. Then they're going to write it down and retroactively throw it back into history. So here's an example of them throwing an African American term back in the past, right? And how devastating will this be in the future if their plan is successful? They get rid of us, and once the real Africans take over in the next 100 years, this individual, Mr. Slocum, aka Mr. Cuffy, would be known as an African American. So they've already did it, family. All right, let's continue here. Voting rights are ceasing taxing. Although the petition failed to sway the Massachusetts general, the campaign helped pave the way for the creation of a new constitution in 1783, which granted equality to all Massachusetts citizens. Now, so based upon this paragraph, they want you to believe that in 1780, Mr. Slocum or Mr. Cuffy was concerned about protesting and some rights to vote or something, right? Against the backdrop of the American Revolution. So, of course, they want you to believe that he wasn't part of the American Revolution, right? Okay, well, was that true? Was he holding up signs protesting and marching for voting rights during that time? Well, I don't think so. So, here is a muster roll. Let's fill this up so the family can see it here. Fill this up. Okay. Fill this up here. Okay, so we see this here. This is a military unit commanded by Henry Jackson of the North, June and July 1780. Okay, so we have the ranks, we have sergeants, and we have little remarks. Now we go under corporal. Let's blow this up so everyone can see. Corporal rank. Bigger. You see that corporal. Okay. And let's go down a little bit here. And lo and behold, what do we have here listed as a corporal? Right there. Paul Cuffey. Right there. Not a sergeant rank, a corporal family in 1780. Remember, he's born approximately 1757. So yes, in his early 20s, he was not marching up signs for voting rights against a backdrop of the American Revolution. He was a corporal during that time. Okay, now I got got a few more records here to pull on that. Let's go to this record here. This record here. Early records. Massachusetts Regiment, number 320, Paul Cuffey. He was a private. This is when he first started off. Revolutionary War. Okay? Private. Revolutionary War. Card numbers here. Okay, let's go to the next one. We got his whole military record here, family. Right there. 16th Regiment, Massachusetts, Paul Cuffey, under Colonel Henry Jackson's regiment, April 1779, Revolutionary War. Okay, date of enlistment or appointment, July 19th, 1780, for a term of 6 months at this rank level here. Okay, so go to the next one. The next one here. You see here, Paul Cuffey, right there. June 1st, 1780. Okay, 6 month term here. I'm going to go to this next one because here, no, not that one. It's the last one here. The last one here. Right here. Okay, here, family. On this particular muster roll, it gives details that he was, how much he was paid during the time, right? Paul Cuffey. Okay. Okay, so here he was discharged November 8th, 1780. And this particular unit, he served 3 months, 19 days, paid per month $6.60. Right now, $6.60 a month in 1780, family. It's a lot of money. The value of that. Now, remember, he wasn't paid in the fiat, federal, debt notes. No, that they're being paid in real gold and silver. So, and then this is the amount that they owed him. They owed him $24.20 there at the time. So we have all this information, right? So, 1780, family. And now, of course, as I presented before, once he finished the military. Now, this is whole deal of people talking about him being part of some initiative to connect it with Sierra Leone and all this crap. First of all, I don't believe it because the records I have, he didn't go there. Okay, now he was a ship mogul, and he owned over 10 vessels. Family, 10. Now I'm going to present some of the information that I presented before when I did a build on Cuffy, on some of his business dealings and transactions. Um, so let's present that here now again to the family here to give you an idea here, right, about Mr. Slocum, aka Mr. Cuffy. Okay, in the Cuffy manuscripts, there is a laconic note chronicling this important event in Paul's life. Bristol, Dartmouth, February 25th, 1783. There personally appeared Paul Cuffy and Alice Pequot, both of Dartmouth, and was joined together in marriage by me. So he got married in 1783, February 25th. Other than that, she was an Indian girl. Little is known of this bride. She, like the groom's mother, probably belonged to the Wampanoag tribe. Paul's sister Mary married an Indian, and there is reason for believing that his brother Jonathan also wedded an Indian. Certain it is that it was not uncommon for Negroes, and now we talk about that's just his opinion. That's just because he's trying to separate them, um, right? As far as we know, he could have been most likely one from that Aboriginal nation, right? So now, check this out here. For several years, Captain Cuffy lived in a rented house, but in 1797, when he had such a successful venture in importing corn from Vienna, he purchased a $3,500 farm on the shore of the Westport River, a few miles below Hips Bridge. He soon built a wharf and a storehouse. At Westport, Captain and Miss Cuffy made their home and reared their family of 2 sons and 6 daughters. Okay, let's go to the next article. Okay, here, let's blow this up here so you can see this closer. Okay. So here, many of the principal people visited his vessel, and at the instance of one of them, Paul dined with his family in town. The investment in corn proved so profitable that a second voyage was made to Vienna. On the 2 trips, Captain Cuffy cleared about $2,000. The Ranger also made a trip to Passamaquoddy to get a cargo for James Bryan of Wilmington. In 1800, there was launched the Hero, a 162-ton bark in which Captain Cuffy had a one-half interest. So he owned 50% of this ship. Um, this vessel, on one of his trips, rounded the Cape of Good Hope. Let's repeat that, family. He circumnavigated the Cape of Good Hope. That's present-day southern Africa. Now, if he was African during his time, he would know that, he'd be very intimate with that. And then if his father was an African, he would know the language, he would know stuff. Why didn't he stop off back to his home country, his homeland? He was a billionaire during his day, had over 10 vessels. Why didn't he go back to get his people? The Afrocentrics ever tell us that? Why didn't he go get his people? Can anyone answer that question? Anyone? Why didn't he get his people, PNF? He had a 160-ton schooner ship. Why would he pass his people and circumnavigate the Cape of Good Hope? We know the question of that. We know the answer to that, PNF. It's all these Afrocentrics have been lying to us. In 1806, the Alpha fitted out. This was a ship of 268 tons, in which the captain had a 3/4 interest. So he had a 268-ton schooner. How many of his family members from whatever part of Africa that the Afrocentrics told us he came from, he could have put in there and brought them to America so they can live the American dream? Captain Cuffy, with a crew of 7 Negroes, commanded the Alpha in a voyage from Wilmington to Savannah, thence to Gothenburg, Sweden, and from there to Philadelphia. So it seems to me, family, he's on the highways and byways getting his bag. But the Afrocentrics want you to believe he's protesting for voting rights. Cuffy also owned one half of 109-ton brig, the Traveler, built in 1806. All right, now, the issue of him going to Sierra Leone. Now, I presented these articles. We're going to present them again. First, we're going to present this one here. Okay? I'm going to present this again here. Okay? Just blow it up so everyone can see it. And if anyone, after I end my presentation, anyone wants copies of the whatever I present, just email me and then I will send you everything here. Okay, so this is from the Edinburgh Review about Paul Cuffy, right? Under the head of Africa, we must also notice the very judicious plan of profiting by the opportunity of inducing Paul Cuffy to settle in Sierra Leone and carry over with him free blacks of good character and of some property, who might settle in the colony and practice among the natives the mechanical arts and the cultivation of tropical produce. So it looks like, according to this passage, this one paragraph here, family, that someone else, this was someone else's plan, and they were trying to induce or convince Captain Paul Slocum, aka Captain Paul Cuffy, to settle in Sierra Leone, bring some other brothers and sisters with him so they can settle a colony and teach the natives the mechanical arts and cultivation, etc. Wasn't an idea that Paul Cuffy thought of, because we just saw Paul Cuffy going around the world, selling goods and making money. Let's continue with the article. Paul Cuffy, as many of our readers know, is a free black who, by his industry and talents, has acquired considerable wealth, a part of which he invests in trade, commanding his vessel in person and manning her with a fine crew of free Negroes. They were lately in this country. What country are we talking about? Gutenberg, right? Go back to the top of the article. Edinburgh, okay? Edinburgh. Now, where's Edinburgh's actually Nova Scotia, family. That's what the Edinburgh Castle is. Well, let's continue here. So they were lately in this country and attracted universal respect by the propriety of their deportment, as well as admiration by their singular proficiency in both the science and the practice of navigation. The African board held a meeting, although in vacation time, for the purpose of seeing and conferring with the captain. His Royal Highness the Duke of Gloucester attended, as he always does, at the board, and together with the other directors, entered fully into the subjects, alike interesting to those distinguished philanthropists, and to their dark-colored but civilized ally. They were highly gratified with the interview, and were led to form the most sanguine expectations of the benefits to be derived from his active cooperation. So we're trying to recruit Mr. Cuffy family. Their application for a grant of land was unhappily rendered unsuccessful by the intervention of hostilities with America. Captain Cuffy being. Now, let's stop right there. So we have to understand there were embargoes put in place at this time. United States of America and British and its territories were not on good terms. Okay, and that was basically from like 1808 all the way up until around 1820 before they lifted the embargo, right? But because Paul Cuffy was a citizen of the United States, we trust that some meaning may still be found of renewing a negotiation so manifestly calculated to carry civilization into Africa by the most sure and practical road. So, like many of us, many of you who teach, and maybe in the chat, know that yes, civilization went into Africa from America. So this article supports what all of you have been saying the entire time. But it doesn't support that Mr. Slocum, aka Mr. Cuffy, was ever part of that whole endeavor. They're recruiting him. Okay? Now, let's continue. This is in truth precisely the principle of the plan pursued with such signal success by the Quakers in civilizing the North American Indians. Now, that's just his opinion. Paul Cuffy's a North American Indian. You don't have to civilize him. You're asking an Indian to civilize people in Africa. Let's continue. We formally called the attention of our readers to this subject, and by referring to what was there, detailed the grounds of our confident expectations from the present plan may be seen. In the meantime, it is gratifying to learn that Paul Cuffy, retaining all his zeal for the improvement of his race, is now exerting himself in America with the great object of civilization constantly before him. Okay, so now we know, based upon this information, that they were trying to recruit Mr. Slocum, aka Mr. Cuffy, to participate in their plans to colonize Sierra Leone. Now let's go to the article that I presented before, the most important article, and this is in the year 1814. Okay, this article's 1814. Now, family, when it comes to ships, especially and even now and Paul Cuffy's day, you cannot just willy nilly take your ship and go somewhere without permission, because you start entering into international waters, and if if your nation is not on good terms with the other nation, now you just can't go into those international waters. Okay, so let me blow this up here. We're going to go over this again so the family is clear, and you won't be so easily victimized by these witches and warlocks here, because they've been lying on these particular illustrious ancestors, right? So it says here March 18th. Of course, this is the year 1814, right? All right. Friday, March 18th. Paul Cuffy's bill. The House resolved itself into a committee of the whole, Mr. Breckinridge of Virginia and the chair, on the bill from the Senate for authorizing the President of the United States to permit the departure of Paul Cuffy with the cargo to Sierra Leone. Paul Cuffy just can't willy-nilly go there without a permit signed, authorized by the President of the United States. Because as an American, he goes into international waters, they're not on good terms. That could be seen as a declaration of war. So, but they take advantage of our ignorance, family, these witches and warlocks, and spill us these narratives thinking in their mind we don't know anything. So they can spin any tale or narrative about the illustrious Mr. Paul Slocum, aka Paul Coffey. Let's continue. So the bill is whether or not Congress and the president are going to sign and give a permit to allow Paul Coffey to take a cargo to Sierra Leone, which the previous article we read, they tried to recruit Paul Coffey to take part in their plans to colonize Sierra Leone. It wasn't Paul Coffey, the creator of that plan. This bill was predicated on the petition of Paul Coffey. They call him an African by descent, which our readers will doubtless recollect to have read in our paper some weeks ago. And its object is sufficiently explained by the title of the bill. This bill underwent a discussion of very diffuse nature and of no little length, in the course of which the object of the bill was supported by Mr. Wheaton, Governor Pickering, Taggart, Bayliss, Webster, Farrow, Duval, and Shepard, and opposed by Mr. Newton, Wright, McKim, Carey, Ingham, Fisk of Vermont, and Ingersoll. This bill was supported on the ground of the excellence of the general character of Mr. Coffey, the philanthropy of his views, the benefits to humanity and religion generally, of which a success in these views might be productive. The benefits which would result to the U.S., particularly from the establishment of an institution which would invite the immigration of free blacks, a part of our population which we could well spare. Okay? On the other hand, the bill was opposed on various grounds. Although they would love to get rid of some brothers and sisters and send them over there to colonize Sierra Leone. But here it said the bill was opposed on various grounds. Whilst the excellence of the general character of Mr. Coffey was fully credited and generally admitted, it was said that the bill would violate in favor of a foreign mission that policy which we had refused to infringe for the sake even of our coasters and fishermen. That Mr. Coffey might depart in neutral vessels with his companions, but that would be improper to permit him to carry out a cargo which was not at all necessary to his views of propagating the gospel. That this voyage would be contrary to the policy of existing laws, independent of the embargo policy, because Sierra Leone was a British settlement. That as this was a British settlement and the possession of a nation claiming and asserted to be the bulwark of our religion, there is no occasion for cargoes departing from the U.S. to enable her to carry her views into effect. Intermingled in this debate was considerable controversy and something like asperity as to the character of the British nation for religion and humanity, in which Mr. Pickering of Massachusetts on the one side and Mr. Carey of Vermont and Mr. Carey of Virginia, Fisk of Vermont on the other, were the principal debaters. And also on the evil which might result from transporting liberated slaves from this country to a British settlement. The question, however, appeared to the reporter to turn on the expediency of permitting, under the existence of the restrictive system, a cargo to go out which must necessarily sail under British license, which it was argued would not be granted unless it were considered advantageous to the interests of the enemy, that such trade should be carried on. The debate having been extended to the usual hour of adjournment, the committee reported the bill to the House with certain amendments, and on the question of the passage of the bill to a third reading, which was decided yeas and nays. The vote was as follows: for the bill 65, against it 72. So the bill was rejected and the House adjourned. Paul Coffey could not go to Sierra Leone. And this was 1814, family. Paul Coffey died in 1817. Now, unless some one presents evidence that a subsequent bill, either in 1815 or 1816, was voted for, which allowed Mr. Cuppy to go to Sierra Leone, present that evidence. Failure to present the evidence, if it's the only one that's on the table, he didn't go. Period. You want to debunk it? Present a subsequent bill that the Senate passed, that the president signed to allow him to go to Sierra Leone. You don't have it, it didn't happen. So I wanted to present that there to the family. Now, one more thing before we go off of finish Paul Cuppy. There were actually two so-called Paul Cuppy's family, and I presented that before in my previous presentation. There was the Shinnecock Indian Paul Cuppy. He was a preacher. So the Shinnecock Indian Paul Cuppy, and then we have the ship merchant Paul Cuppy. Okay? So here is a record of a record of death up in the Massachusetts area. And if you see here closely, it lists both Cuffeys. So here's Paul Cuffey, Reverend Missionary in Long Island, New York, Montauk, New York, age 54. He died April 1st, 1812. Now we know that the merchant, here's the other one, Paul Cuffey, here, merchant. One's a reverend, the other's a merchant. Died in Westport, Massachusetts, age 59, in 1817. Okay? So you had the Indian preacher, Paul Cuffey, and you had the Indian merchant, billionaire of his day, Paul Cuffey. Two different individuals, family. So do not be confused when they're talking about which Paul Cuffey there. But the merchant Paul Cuffey was all about business and was mainly on his ships traveling the world doing trade. Okay. At one point, individuals tried to recruit him to take part in the colony plan to colonize Sierra Leone, and to introduce arts, introduce agriculture to the natives there. But we just read one of the bills presented to Congress and the president in 1814 was denied. It's the only evidence we have so far, family. So if the bill passed 1815, 16, 17, please present that information. So another thing I want to present here is we are familiar with this image here, right here. Shout outs to A1 here on this. This is the entire Senate, House of Representatives of the state of Louisiana in 1868. All 30 of them, and of course, all 30 of them were melanated. And of course, I did a presentation at the time. I'll present the article in a future presentation. But remember, during this time, family, after the rebellion, or what they call the Civil War, but after the rebellion, the very few pale skins that were in the South, what did the real Americans do? They did not, because of their participation in the rebellion, they could not vote or run for political office. Okay? And I read that article. I'll present it again in the future presentation. But I did present that on A1's channel a few years ago. Pale skins could not vote or run for office because of their participation in the rebellion. So when the Afrocentrics want you to believe that these individuals in the state of Louisiana and were slaves. That is powerful comedic material. And my advice is to sell that to Chris Rock. He may pay you $1 million to use that material because that's funny. But I remember a while back, A1 was talking to some Pan African, and A1 presented this here image, and one of the Pan Africans stated, "Oh, well, what were they? What were their status before they were in this position?" Insinuating that they were slaves. Okay, family. First of all, the ridiculous that is so ridiculous. First of all, you mean to tell me? So imagine what the Afrocentrics want us to believe, that you had this pale skin controlling everybody, right? So you mean to tell me the former pale skin masters voted them all into this position? I mean that the pale skins voted them in, family. That's what that means. Voted all 30 of them in. So we know how ridiculous that is. Okay, so but I focused on a couple of individuals, and I did a little bit of the genealogy. Now this in the middle is the esteemed honorable Oscar James Dunn. Um, I did a little bit of his, but I'll present it in a future presentation. But I want to show a little information on Honorable Robert Poindexter. Uh, right here. Okay, this one right here at the bottom, right next to Pinchback. This image here, Poindexter. Okay, right here. All right. So Poindexter, I found. So what he was doing before he got into politics? Well, he was a merchant. I found a record of him. He was a merchant. Now let's pull this record here. A ship manifest here I found. Okay, 1846 ship manifest. Okay, and I'm just going to present this. I'll get into deeper details about Mr. Poindexter and a few others from the image of the senators in a future presentation. But I just wanted to show the family this here. Okay, now this is 1846. Now this is a ship. Okay, and it says here a list of passengers taken on board the steamship Galveston. Okay, and it was under Captain John Wright, and they were at the port of Galveston, Texas, bound for New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, so it has a list of the passengers, their age, their sex, their occupation, which country they belong. Now, mind you, family, this is 1846. Now, remember what I said before. Texas was its own jurisdiction, its own country, not part of the United States. Okay? Now, before the Texas Compromise of 1850, Texas was huge. It comprised of um, um, Oklahoma was part of Texas, New Mexico, Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming. All that was Texas, family, at this time. Okay? So now we go here. Let's go down to Mr. Poindexter. He's right here. Mr. Poindexter, he's 23 at the time. Okay? And he was a merchant. A merchant before he got into politics. Okay? What he's the U.S. Now you see other individuals that listed what's their country. It's Texas because they were separate in 1846. Right? And we go up to what the category here. Country to which they belong, Texas or the U.S. They were different, family. So if you have ancestors in Texas or Oklahoma, to be more specific, and pre-1850, you have to start looking at Texas records. That's just a little tip. So ancestors in Oklahoma did not become that name and that state until like 1906, I believe. Before that, it was called Indian Territory. But it was part of Texas pre 1850. A lot of people don't know that, but that's a fact, right? Um, but if you have ancestors in Indian territory or what they call Oklahoma, and they were there for a while, and you may find yourself hitting a wall, you may have to start looking at Texas records. Okay, so there's the um, archives. You know, they have great archives and records in Texas there, but that's just a tip for the family. But again, the point is, Mr. Poindexter, before he was a politician, was a merchant, not a slave. And no, so he was doing business in Galveston and coming back to New Orleans at the time there. But I just want to kind of show that there. And many of you can be descendants of many of those politicians in that image there. Um, and so now, you know, you could be a descendant of the Slocum family, etc. And so you have a job to do there. But again, so just pointing out, family, that our ancestors were esteemed. This is our nation. America's ours, which is why they have to keep changing and creating new social constructs for us. We're the only ones on the planet who's a mystery. We are the mystery. We're the only ones who don't have a geographic location type of construct connected to us, like Mexicans, Mexico, Koreans, Korea, geographical location. What do they do for us? They have colored, Negro, Black, African American, but never a set connection because they have to keep us clouded, a mystery, so they can continue to reap and suck off our minerals of our land in America. But of course, now we can't let their plans materialize, family, in the future. So we have to plant seeds now to counteract their future plans in the next 50 to 100 years. So we have to be diligent and secure our future children, right? That's what we have to do. That's our job now, right? And you know, I don't know if you're aware of this, family, but you know, again, these Africans have taken over. You know, a good friend of mine, I grew up with him, and our women in America, the young girls, the real American young brothers are extinct. They're not around. So they have, you know, my best friend's daughter was dating an African and met him in university because there aren't real young American brothers in the universities. So the young sisters have, you know, they have no choice. We are extinct, but we're not talking about it. I mean, how we're on a battlefield being killed off, and we're just walking around like this. It's a pink elephant. And no one's saying anything, and our numbers are decreasing. African, marry your daughter, get off into your bloodline, and the land you have, your inheritance, it goes to them and their family members back in their little villages over there. And then they bleed us. You know, they'll get us out of the bloodline, and they take it over. We have to be on that level of prevention. So, just wanted to present that there, family. We can end it there tonight. Thanks for taking time out. Again, let's get into our genealogical records, both maternal and paternal. I mean, maternal and paternal, and that's what it's all about there. And
Amani,
again,
can I say something real?
yeah,
I'm
sure,
sorry,
go
I didn't
ahead.
mean to interrupt. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you. All right, so for those that came in a little late, I did send you that link, Amani, for you to, because I don't know how to drop it in chat. Otherwise, I would. But once again, this is some names that you all can, look at. Uh, it'll be on that list. Just click on that link, download it as soon as you can. You know how these demons work. Because as soon as we find something out, all of a sudden it disappears. If you all happen to, if you all do crash the system, get on it too quickly. I already backed it up on my computer. I could send it out, just Monty, just reach out to me through Amani, and I'll get it to him, and get it to you guys again if need be. But I sent him the link. Hopefully, he can either put it in the chat, or you all can email him. You have his email address, and he'll get that information out to you. Do your genealogy. Don't get caught up into that. Uh, Moors, and are we Moors? Are we Native Americans? Are we Aboriginals? Again, I can't stress this enough because I go on these boards so much. These pale people don't care about that. They could care less. We get caught up in that stuff. They don't. They're going and taking those names, and I've literally seen them do it. They change their names. They're taking your ancestors' name because we're sitting up here arguing over stuff that we can, what, when the battle is over with, we'll figure this stuff out. But right now we're in a battle. So they're taking these names and they're getting they're on what is it, the sons of the Revolutionary War, the daughters of the Revolutionary War. They're in all the Confederate, all kind of stuff. They're getting all kind of benefit, guys. That's our ancestor stuff. So we got to leave that nonsense alone for now and just get what our ancestors left for us. But I really appreciate you all. I sent that information. If you have any other information, you have any questions, you're Aboriginal to this land, you're royalty across this nation. Everybody knows it but you. And it's time for us to claim our inheritance. Love you guys.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I just dropped my email there in the chat. Amani AMANI .BEY, the number 5 at gmail.com. So a few people have already emailed me. I'm going to be sending them over the information that we presented. And have a great night there, family. And I may go live tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, we can do a
So
series on this. I got more names. So it's up to you. I got a ton of names. I have all those
yeah,
celebrities' names. I did all of them. I was mad. I was mad, mad. So we can keep
right,
going if you want to.
exactly, indeed. Okay, so yes, we have to start being diligent now, family. We got to draw a line in the sand, and for I'm extreme. You have to be extreme with the family. Now we notice even in and they've taken over most of the roles in Hollywood, usually Africans who are with British citizenship. And I'm to a point now where I don't even watch those movies now. I'm not going to even support it. Brother Lorenz Tate was on an interview talking about it, that the roads are going to the brothers and sisters in England, right? And they are their lineage is African, and so and I don't even watch it anymore. So we have to because we can't support that because we're supporting our own demise, right? So um, Christopher, it was fun for 18. No, I haven't heard of that, Christopher. For their immigrant and established permanent German settlement in Texas. Wow. Okay. Yeah, let's build on that, Christopher. Reach out to me, bro. It's been a long time. Hope all's well with you and your family there. But let's definitely talk. It's been a while. But yeah, great family. We'll continue again, and I'll continue this genealogical warfare series, and we'll continue that. Now, any of you, of course, when I did a presentation when it comes to this DNA testing stuff. Now, remind you, I put out the information that it's they want our DNA, and China's controlling it to create bioweapons. So these testing companies, they're gathering your DNA to create bioweapons, and so these people think of it as a sponsor. So these Afrocentrics that are promoting these DNA tests are sponsored and paid to target and promote it to us. So even now, if you matter of fact, let me give you a tip. If you unknowingly took it because you were ignorant, and of course you regret it now, but if you taken that test, um, and then you juxtapose it with your genealogical records that there's no African anywhere, my advice is to file a lawsuit against the company. And if it's 23andMe, I would include Rick Kittles as a defendant. Someone has to get started on that and start really start suing slapping lawsuits on these people, because they had you under one belief that you were there, but you have genealogical records that dispute their DNA results, and that injured you psychologically, you have a claim against them. And loop in that Dorn or the African. They have an African DNA testing company, I believe. And if you juxtapose it with your genealogical records, you have something different. You got a claim. So let's start suing these DNA companies for that. So we, then that's gonna, get their attention, right? So with that, there, everyone have a good night. Um, yes, indeed, they are at war with us, Indigenous Americans, for sure. It's been that way, but we're still standing. We're still here. But now we're smarter, and now we know what their plans are. Now we can plan better to counter their attack. So let's get busy there, family. Everyone have a great night, and I may be on again tomorrow or sometime next week. Have a good night. Take care.